Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're looking at a story of just ultimate strategic patience and immense ambition. You know, when we think of medieval Indian history, our minds usually jump straight to the established giants. But tucked right in the heart of the subcontinent rose an empire that fundamentally reshaped South India, the Kakatiya Dynasty. And the craziest part? They didn't start out as royalty. They literally started as soldiers in the shadows. Okay, let's dive into this. How do you go from taking orders to issuing them on a completely monumental scale? To actually understand this incredible ascent, we have to travel back to the gritty geographical reality of 12th century India. This was a place where survival meant absolutely everything. And loyalty? Well, loyalty was often just a stepping stone. Section 1. The Forgotten Deccan Empire. So, this entire story takes place on the rugged, semi-arid Deccan Plateau, which covers what we know today as modern-day Telangana and Andhra Pradesh. It was kind of a shadowy chessboard, a buffer zone that history often just completely overlooks. But it brilliantly illustrates exactly what the Kakatiyas were up against. You had these massive, established giants, the Chola Empire dominating the Deep South, and the formidable sultans and Rajputs controlling the north. Sandwiched right in the middle on that rugged plateau, you have our forgotten power. When you look at this contrast, it really emphasizes the staggering magnitude of their eventual achievement. They were entirely surrounded by giants, which meant they couldn't just play the game harder, they had to play it a whole lot smarter. To even survive in that landscape, the Kakatiyas operated as what were known as Samanthas, basically feudatory chieftains. In the totally chaotic 10th century Deccan, which was dominated by the immensely powerful Western Chalukyas of Kalyani, the Kakatiyas served as the ultimate military enforcers. They provided the infantry, they held down the incredibly dangerous borderlands, and they fought under the banners of rival kings. They essentially learned the mechanics of empire building from the inside out, doing all the heavy lifting for the Chalukya emperors. Section 2, Loyal Chieftains and Vassals. Before they could rule, they had to serve. Early leaders like Beta Raja I and Prola I did exactly that, earning these really valuable lands and vital administrative expertise through generations of dedicated military service. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how we actually know this history. It's not just a myth, it's literally carved into stone and earth. The Kakatiya name itself likely derives either from their fierce devotion to the goddess Kakati or from their ancestral base Kakatipura. And the undeniable proof of their early origins and fierce devotion is anchored by tangible historical artifacts, like the Bairam tank and the Megala Grant inscriptions. These physical markers prove that for a very long time, they were perfectly content, or, well, at least they appeared perfectly content, to be the loyal border guards for the Chalukyas. Just looking at the span of time here, you can really see the centuries-long strategic patience of this clan. I mean, in the 10th century, Beta Raja I and Prola I are serving loyally, but it takes all the way until the early 12th century for Prola II to start capitalizing on a shifting political landscape. And it isn't until 1163 CE that Rudradeva finally declares absolute sovereignty. What you should absolutely take away from this is that empires aren't always built overnight. Sometimes they're meticulously crafted over hundreds of years by generations passing down a singular, unified vision. Section 3, Prola II seizes opportunity. So the inciting incident for their rise wasn't just internal ambition, it was external chaos. The Western Chalukya Empire, their overlords, began to fracture from internal civil wars and, mounting external pressure from the Hoysalas. And this is where things get incredibly tense. Recognizing that the old order was crumbling, Prola II engaged in what we can only really call the dangerous double game. While officially still acknowledging Chalukya suzerainty, meaning, yes, he was still bowing to the emperor on paper, Prola II was quietly gathering his own troops, reinforcing his borders, and fortifying hilltops. He was just waiting in the shadows for the absolute perfect moment to strike. Let's break down exactly how he executed this, because Prola II's strategy was honestly a geopolitical masterclass, laid out in 3 highly calculated steps. First, he actively expanded his personal domain across the Telangana plains, kind of stretching his legs while the bosses were distracted. Second, he ruthlessly defeated neighboring vassals who caught wind of what he was doing and attempted to crush his growing influence. And third, and most importantly, he secured Hanamkonda as a permanent, heavily fortified stronghold. He wasn't just winning random skirmishes here, he was building the physical foundation for an independent state. Section 4, 1163, Sovereign Independence. Let's move to Warangal and see how this builds with Prola II's brilliant son, Rudradeva, who's also known as Rudra I. The groundwork was laid by Prola II for sure, but the trigger was pulled by Rudradeva. Where his father was calculating and patient, Rudradeva was swift and totally decisive. He launched a series of lightning campaigns across the region. He violently crushed rival regional warlords who stood in his way, decisively defeated the Villainati Chodas, and in a final, bold stroke, he drove out the remaining loyalists, the Chalukyas of Mudigonda. Rudradeva systematically swept the board completely clean of his former masters to fully secure the Telangana heartland. So, the crucial point is this. In 1163 CE, the centuries of waiting and bleeding for other kings finally came to an end. Rudradeva issued the famous Hanamkonda inscription, permanently etched onto an ancient granite pillar. It was the ultimate climax, formally declaring the Kakatiyas a sovereign, independent empire. This wasn't just some political shift on paper. It was the realization of a generations-long dream, literally carved in stone for the medieval world to see. To commemorate this massive achievement, Rudradeva didn't just throw a parade, he built a masterpiece. He commissioned the breathtaking 1,000-pillar temple, also known as the Rudradeva Temple. It was dedicated to Shiva, Vishnu, and Surya. But aesthetically, it was a profound statement. It is an absolute masterclass in star-shaped Chalukya and Kakatiya fusion architecture. By blending the artistic style of their former overlords with their own emerging Kakatiya identity, they created a physical, lasting, and just visually stunning symbol of their newly declared independence. Section 5. The Road to Warangal. Because while Rudradeva had won their independence, holding an empire against aggressive neighbors was going to require something far bigger than the Hanamkonda stronghold. Think about it. In less than a century, this clan had transformed from mere vassal chieftains into the undisputed masters of the region. But there is a massive difference between declaring an empire and actually keeping one. They had the ambition, they had the troops, and they had the independence. But how exactly do you engineer and defend a massive triple-walled new empire centered entirely around a single giant granite monolith named Urugalu? Well, that incredible architectural and military puzzle is exactly what we will unpack in our next explainer. Thanks so much for learning with us today, and I'll see you next time.